Welcome, everyone, to my session. So, actually this session is in part about to see also if we should have a workshop around this theme or not. Because I didn't want to immediately say, okay, we should have a workshop about this. There are a couple of developments in DNN, and this is now on our track, and we need to discuss it. And I hope we can have a bit of back and forth during this session, and then after the session we can always see if we need more time tomorrow. So, without further ado, why do we have a DNN? Why are we talking about DNN distribution? Well,
just fine now for this time.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Let me define it. What is a DNN distribution? A DNN distribution, it is really modeled after Linux for me. So Linux, there's a group of people like Linus, headed off by Linus Torvalds, that define what is really the core of Linux. But the graphic shell is, there are various of them, right? And it kind of began with just a few, and then all of a sudden it bloomed into a whole cottage industry of various projects that took Linux and then built a graphic shell around it. But then there were other, and each because it was a team that felt that it should work this way or felt that way. There were commercial distributions, right? So I think that's the Red Hat, right? This is like commercial, and a whole bunch that are free. And then Linux kind of veered into the, it became the standard also for embedded systems, meaning the graphic interface wasn't necessary, it wasn't particularly something for that market. But people started developing dedicated shells that would do a particular function. Like I'm sure most of you have a network drive at home to store pictures and what have you on. Mine is from Western Digital. It has a nice webby interface where you call it up on your local network. Behind it, it's all Linux, right? We have micro Linux distribution. My router runs on Linux, and I find it inspiring also because Linux is one of the few successful open source projects. I think I would say, right? It survived an awful long time, and I've long looked at it like, is there something there that we can cherry pick from it to see how we could move DNN forward, where we seem to be continuously struggling between the open source and the commercial, and trying to work in this field of moving interest. So distributions really it's a technical term for taking something that is common with other platforms, and then building something around it which is particular, and then you have maybe various versions of those various distributions. For DNN, that would look like, well, the most obvious thing, it's possible now, we have different modules, right? You can have auto-installing modules, we do now, right? You have the HTML module that installs by default, and you have the Razor host module that installs by default. So you could begin to replace the HTML module, right, with something else. So that would be a very simple intervention. If you package the whole thing up and put it on your site, that would be effectively another distribution of DNN than the current DNN Platform distribution. Evoke is essentially another distribution of DNN Platform, right? So why do I think we should be talking about distribution? Well, I think that one of the big advantages is if you have multiple distributions can target specific submarkets. Right? Currently we have DNN Platform, it targets kind of everything, and it is not uncommon for us during debates about, this versus that feature that needs to be added, that what bubbles up actually is that people are using it really for different scenarios. So if someone would be saying, yeah, I don't see that, as very important, and someone else would be like, that is something that is absolutely missing in the platform. That is because we're targeting different markets. So I hope that one of the goals would be if we can actually more effectively target different markets, we could actually spur growth with this platform. Second point, the current UI, so that we all know, right? The control bar that comes down, little gizmos on the page to do like when you call up the panel for module settings, the various admin menu bits and host menu modules. I think most of those are pretty outdated, right? They are, well, for starters, they're all based on web forms and on postbacks, which is a tedious thing and it is no longer accepted. So we're going to have to rethink that anyway. We have to revisit the UI anyway, and that's kind of like the elephant in the room when we're discussing DNN Next, is the whole friggin' UI that comes with DNN. It's like, how do we really have to rewrite all of that? My drive is towards a concept, what I'd call DNN Core, in the same way that you have the .NET Core, CLR, that you have the parallels with Linux kernel, that you have a common engine, right? It could come as a couple of DLLs that has no interface, but that does specific web tasks like managing users, managing permissions, managing how the site is structured with the pages and everything, but not actually the visual parts itself. And interestingly enough, I think that is currently the thinking, not just with us at DNN Connect, but also at DNN Corp. When I'm sparring this with them, it is received quite well. It's like, yeah, we're kind of thinking along the same lines. Partly also because doing everything isn't a tremendously huge task, right, for them. So they're seeing the opportunity to focus more on what I would call a DNN core, and for us to start liberating ourselves and creating a distribution, creating a shell around this of our own making. So it would provide actually a better focus for that. Like, okay, so what is the DNN core, right? After that, we've got to start to define that between us. Like, okay, so what would the DNN core do, right? Does user management, does this, does it do social? Maybe, maybe not, right? So there's a whole bunch of decision points there to be made, but they will only be made if we go down this path, right? Right now, it's a non-issue. No one's going to discuss this, but only when we kind of step forward and say, okay, we're going to make a distribution, do these issues crop up, and do we get a better architecture for the DNN core, in my opinion. Independence, well, I mean, that I think needs very little elaboration. I mean, after all, ever since 2008, DNN Corp has been founded, we've continuously had conversations with people who felt that the separation of interests and efforts between DNN Corp and the community wasn't optimal, wasn't as it should be. I'm trying to find creative ways to move beyond that and say, okay, let's make that irrelevant, that discussion. Let's say, okay, we do some stuff ourselves and liberate ourselves from any dependencies on other people making decisions. And finally, so I come back to Linux. I mean, Linux does it, and they seem to be successful. So I think there's something to take back from that.
So nobody's done this yet?
For CMS, apparently Drupal has, but I only just have been told. But no. People have made vertical solutions that they've distributed. Of course, you're working on the same, right along the same lines, and by all means, I think that was one of the great things about DNN, that business model. But we haven't done it at this scale. No one's ever attempted at saying, okay, we want to distribute it this way. And a year ago, this was still not something that DNN Corp was willing to allow, right? And yeah, so we were kind of stuck with that idea, but all of a sudden things have jogged since then, and I think also the whole ASP.next approach, their philosophy, all those shifts and the developments that I've been talking about actually at the start of the conference, that have all of a sudden made this possible now. And I think for DNN Connect as an association, this should be our next step. You know, now we founded it ourselves. We managed to organize a conference. I think this is the next domain that we should be heading to. So, what kind of target markets could I brainstorm? Well, if I, this is basically, it's been written in 5 minutes, that I could think about the various projects that I've been involved in, if I want to categorize them, where I found that DNN was actually a useful candidate and that I have some meaningful experience in, so small medium businesses, the mom and pop shop in America. I think DNN definitely has something to offer there. Clubs and associations, so I run a club website myself. I think Philip does as well. Anyone else run a website? Yeah, you do? For what kind of a club?
Sporting club.
For that?
Sporting.
Yeah, sporting. Okay. What sport?
Cycling.
Cycling. Hey, cool. Anyone else?
For the GCI, the association.
Yeah. Okay.
The
Yeah.
website.
Exactly. For JCE, the Jeune Chambre de Commerce. Okay. Cool. So, you guys have similar experiences as I have. Not exactly the same. But we do, when I was sparring with Philip about club websites, certain similarities appeared, right, in this whole thing. Now you have other distributions you could think of as like really dedicated distributions. Like say, okay, well I have a blog, right? So I've always said, WordPress is just a dedicated distribution of that system meant for blogging, right? The rest has all been built on top, and you then started to migrate somewhere else, but they were really just contained there. And there's nothing stopping DNN of creating a very simplified distribution that targets exactly that market. And we could do it. I'm still convinced we could do it. Local government and schools, I mean, that's something that quite a few of us have dabbled with in terms of DNN sites. And the small intranets, I've had several projects where the customer was, it wasn't a public site that they were making, but it was internally for a specific group of people, and they didn't have a large budget. Use DNN because it could actually do what they wanted to do, and that would be, for instance, in a hospital, a specific segment of the hospital that we use.
And charities would be Charities.
Charities, yeah, charities, yes, absolutely. Should name that charities. Do you run a charity website?
Yeah, we look after them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it'd be, and you do the admin functions, right? Like not just you do everything.
No, they're able to,
Okay, they're able to manage it themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're all the same needs, it's fundraising,
Yeah.
events,
Yeah.
Sponsorship.
Exactly.
Similar needs.
Exactly, similar needs. So, so UI versus core, right? I've just been before talked about it a little bit. So, like Evo, distribution. What is it? This is the current situation where you would have, you would roll out with a bunch of modules, and swap out modules. Providers as well, of course, and their skins, but extensions, let's say, current extension points. And if you take it one step further, you say, okay, well then, if we could also rip out the complete admin UI, you could actually make something that doesn't look anything like DNN anymore, right? And I think quite a few people in our audience would be like, oh, that would be nice. Can we get rid of the old? And yeah, I mean, technically, I think that should be possible in the future. And certainly, you know, Joe and Charles are friendly to that. So yeah, the you know, where the red line is, I mean, that would be what is specific to the distribution. And you would just have the DNN core that is common between us and DNN core. Now, independence. So the DNN Corpus said a number of times, like, the community needs to auto-organize. And like I said, I wanted to move actually from the picture on the left to the picture on the right. if you get the analogy I'm trying to make. I mean, I do have the feeling that we're all tugging something that is, we're tugging a block of concrete, and we're not getting somewhere. So, and yeah, I reiterate the point about Linux, and indeed, I mean, one of the challenges when you think about distributions of this is this part, and that's what I meant when you try to refocus on what a core should be. I mean, there should be some leadership when it comes to someone who's strong enough to resist that such a DNN core bloats and tries to do everything that actually could better be handled in distributions. One example that I could name, and I'm sure it's going to make some of you snigger, is DNN Social. Right? It was rolled into the core, but it has led to a whole branch of extra API, and I know for a fact that many of us have struggled with the API, and to understand also why that was actually rolled in the way it was. So in the future, I think if we could just like contain that, make that process a bit different, and say, no, this is going to go into the distribution, and then maybe the best bits one day will migrate into the core, but there's a much slower process which doesn't slow down the overall progress of the project, right? So these are my thoughts on how we could do it, because you have to be practical at the end of the day. You have to come up with a plan. So most importantly, of course, we'll try not to focus on creating 10 distributions at the same time, but try to pick out one that at least has some support from our community to get our shoulders under. And once that first one is made, I'm pretty sure that that experience can be carried through to a second and a third, then in a more rapid fashion as we tackle other markets. But really the challenge is getting the first one done. And so the proposal there is to do the club association one, because a number of us have had experience with that already, so we have some ideas on what we would like to roll in there. And that would immediately give us already a couple of owners of different parts. And when I mean owner, I mean someone who's going to say, okay, this bit, so to give you a concrete example, both Philip and myself were very passionate about the way membership is handled and user registration. And we feel that for a club association, the current UI in the DNN is just inadequate. Doesn't really cover our needs. So we'd like to redo that. We'd like to revise that and make that into a different experience, much more conducive to the market that we're talking about. But Philip is stepping forward and say, okay, I'll own that challenge. And meaning he gets to drive how that will look, etc., for the product. Now the owners would get visibility, of course, on our DNN Connect site. They get a nice smiley headshot somewhere, and a name, and you know, I'm sure we're going to go down the path of MVPs, right, one day. No, but
MVP.
no, exactly. Yes.
Oh.
DNN Connect MVP, my word. No, actually, it basically is some of us who've lived the experience of the DNN project saying, can we replicate some of the best parts of the old core team and reinstate them moving forward with DNN Connect. So, brainstorming further, right? Club association distribution, how would that work? Well, Philip would, as I just mentioned, would like to sink his teeth into user membership and management. Obviously, I'm looking, there's Peter here, agenda and events is something that is, it always crops up in these things, and it is in dire need of some love. Blog announcements, I'm happy to own that part because yeah, blog is already falling under me right now. Photo sharing, looking at a certain gentleman in the back of the room. Facebook, Twitter integration, that's also something I see, you know, on my club site, for the club sites, yeah, you need some way to have the club's Facebook page, right, integrated with the stuff that's happening in the platform. And then the usual palaver of, like, you know, put a picture here and put some text there. I mean, that I think is the regular stuff. And possibly what I'd also like is a really nice flexible skin at one point, because I think we're being underserved at the moment by the default skin, which I think is made to just make DNN look nice, but it doesn't give us the best experience for the kind of site that we're trying to make. And it also doesn't give a whole lot of levers to say, oh, how about I just change the font size, or how about just, you know, that could be done with tools like Less that allow you to actually parameterize your whole skin, right? So your whole CSS. You say, okay, well, this is my base font size, and then your header size is all, you know, adjust accordingly. And I find that wonderfully powerful as a tool to make something fairly simple, and you know, any beginning developer can just like, oh, okay, then I just change this and make this color a bit different, and you know, make those colors correspond to the club's colors or something like that, and then boom, your skin looks like something decent that a club can use. So yes. Yeah, that's right. I thought it would be nice to make a list of all the admin modules in DNN. Those are
be replaced.
Exactly. This is actually from the database, right? So these are all the modules that get installed by default that have some UI representation, right? So some of them will look pretty alien to you. Might look, yeah, dashboard. I don't know who uses the dashboard. No. Okay, that's gone. Device preview management. Okay, pretty much we could tick all of them off, I think, at one point, right? So yeah, you have a whole bunch of modules that, you know, some of them are up to date. I mean, if you know, the digital asset management is, even though it's a competitor, of course, of mine, but it's still relatively new, right? That thing. But if you go to something like the log viewer, I don't know when the last code change on that was, but that might well have been something like 5 years ago, right? And those modules need either to be ticked for out or be replaced by something else. Yeah, that I think is roughly where I wanted to, you know, so you have the inbuilt modules, of course, the ones that you actually see maybe as an end user, HTML, journal, whether message center, search results, it's a module, and view profile is a module as well. Yeah. So, pretty funny picture. Right, time to discuss. Yeah, these are my thoughts about this, and you know, I need you guys to help with focus, to help with, you know, the work, to help with using it, committing to using it, to trying it, to, well, better using it, like for really your club or association. So the floor is open.
I think one important aspect might be that we need to do it in a way that people also can actually make money out of it.
Yeah, I was thinking
So
the
if you want to get people contributing to this thing, it's a hell of a work, and I don't think we get many people on board with only
But you,
visibility on DNN Connect site.
it's a DNN distribution. You can
Yeah.
make money of it, right? It's very easy. It costs you zero, the DNN distribution. Your client has no clue. Gifford just explained that.
Indeed, but we need to, well, tell people that that might be a good way to actually make money.
Yeah.
By creating distributions and well, selling distributions as a solution to your client.
Indeed. And that way, just by
It's-
grouping
To make clear,
efforts.
it's not only
right?
a hobby, it's something that you can actually
Oh
use.
no! No, I mean it's just like the, you know, at the base. I mean the whole DNN effort started that way, right? Like
Yeah.
we have a framework. If we all group together and make something together, we can all make money off it.
Yeah.
And that's. At the
And
end
in the
of
long
day.
run, if the first distribution is going to work out well, there's the floor open for other distributions, as you said. And there's possibly a few more solutions that you can actually make money of.
Yeah.
Like what John is doing with his
Yeah.
web advantage.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That is basically the same kind of thing.
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Besides, you're not rolling it out.
Don't worry, we don't want to migrate into that market. It's, yeah, like Philip
Well,
said.
Is it necessary that the distribution has to be, can be updated by the next core version?
Yeah. So because I think that is.
Is it included in the definition of distribution?
Yeah, for me, yes, because every Linux distribution also, when there's a new Linux kernel, that, you know, then slowly trickles into the various distributions. It's because that sets it apart from a fork, right? So you have forking of distribution. Distribution, you try to actually, I think, try to get the best of both worlds. Trying to be independent, but at the same time benefiting still from a common development trajectory.
On the other hand, in the last session, I learned never update your DNN site.
No.
It's not necessary.
Don't break something that ain't broken. Yeah, exactly. That's for sure. Now you could roll out and never update. I think it sits at a different level, right? That sits at the level of, okay, you've rolled it out and that's it. I doubt that Gifford would be very happy to roll out forks of DNN, because that means if there's any issue with it down the line, in 5 years' time you will have forgotten what exactly it was that you changed and why you changed it, and you will be stuck in a nightmare. That's it's not really a
It
path
doesn't,
out like that.
it doesn't really matter if it's distribution or a regular DNN site. If
No.
he wants to update one of his client site, he also needs to update the module, so he needs to make sure that the module work on that version he's updating to.
Exactly.
And with the distribution, we need to do kind of the same thing.
We just kind of tie in to a specific set of modules, right?
Yeah.
And I, you know, technically I think we could change that over time, but the idea is to more or less, you know, say, okay, we bet on the blog module, we bet on the events module, for instance. Means that, you know, we do need to have a good relationship with the owners of those projects, so that we don't get bogged down by compatibility issues down the line. And What are your thoughts, Hans Peter?
I think it's a good idea if there is a core version and supply working solutions with that.
Yeah.
Most of my clients have dedicated solution. Most of the admin stuff is not relevant for them because they get a
Exactly.
custom-made web application.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would be nice if it would be easier to distribute those versions and make your market bigger for those solutions.
Yeah.
You're talking about a club website. My experience with clubs in the Netherlands is that they don't have any money, so that makes it difficult to earn money. Another opportunity would be to have a good type of document management, intranet type of solution,
Yeah.
including publishing document to the outside world.
Yeah.
That's the type of environment that my clients do have. They, for example, they have SharePoint internally
Yeah.
for document management, but they don't want to publish their SharePoint documents to the outside world, so they have some kind of copy mechanism into that environment. But I think with the enhancements of the digital asset management, there will be opportunities to bring a solution that is a complete document management solution, including publishing documents for the outside world. Once documents get a certain level of approval,
Yeah.
people are willing to pay for that. That's one of the items. Second one, I really think Evoke Engage is expensive. It brings a lot, but it's expensive, especially during the past few years where the dollar or euro rate has decreased almost twofold.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the clients that I have are, let's say, up to the standard for a real Evoke Engage solution with all the bits and bytes that come with it.
Yeah.
But I do think there is an opportunity to build community type of solutions for those clients.
Mm.
And it could really be DNN Platform with a number of dedicated solutions, dedicated modules next to it, completely out of the box working. So there's an opportunity for that as well. So I'm not really looking for clubs, because my experience, that most of the clubs are looking for money and not spending money. So it would be
Well, it's a different market, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a club site, if you want to make money of a club site, you need to
Yeah.
sell thousands.
We do have large national societies in the Netherlands, for example, Kunststudie, who has 1,000 clubs
Yeah.
and about 250,000 members, and they own the 1,000 websites for all those clubs.
Yeah.
So they pay the money for it, but there's really money involved in this money. So that is the
Political parties, perhaps?
Yeah. Political parties.
What also is useful is that especially, let's say, commercial marketing oriented people are looking for event type websites.
Yeah.
So something that can be set up right
Quickly.
quickly
Yeah.
and then works for 3 months.
Oh, like
4
like
months.
this, like this. Right?
And then,
I think
done
that,
again.
Yeah.
there's, I think, dedicated one for conferences.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of money in that, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of conferences.
Absolutely.
And you
Absolutely.
put it up, 2 months
Yeah.
beforehand. People can sign up. They can pay for the ticket. You can have post the agenda. You can have people contacting and networking before,
Yeah.
during, and after.
And the
But
advantages.
you probably say
yeah.
it's, time life probably 6 months.
Yeah.
Actually.
Next.
And
And next one, you better start again. You pay again.
Exactly, and of course the advantage is we'd actually be using it ourselves.
Yeah. Big market conferences. Big stuff.
Big amount of money involved.
Big amount of money worldwide.
Okay.
People, in those environments, people decide rather quickly about spending money.
But they've got the money because they have to promote it. They have to do it.
Yeah.
They can't. Nobody runs a conference without a dedicated website for it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
But I've not seen very many that do a good job of connecting people before, during, and after.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's more money involved in there.
Real money there.
That's true. That's true. No, I
Yeah.
hear you. Yeah.
And you probably don't have to knock yourself out in terms of visual design, really.
No.
There's a short lifestyle cycle.
Yeah, that's true.
You want to get away with a very similar design every time.
But I want to be the same niche than the club association side. The functionality is about the same.
It's
These
certainly, I
sites-
think it's different, it's time
No,
defined, and I think you have to
It's
be
more
quite-
advanced.
There's a
It's
social-
more
there's
advanced.
It's more advanced, of course.
There's a social aspect to it as well, I think, that can be
Because it-
exploited.
Because the thing is, we were using, we make a conscious effort at DNN Connect to not use any commercial modules. We don't even use DMX or anything for our internal document management.
Honestly.
Exactly, honestly. We use NB Store, this time for the event. You know, we had a whole bunch of experience with it. You're right that we could carry forward and perfect that system.
So I've been to silos and any number of conferences on the website. Never been a great experience.
Yeah. That's right. And I had a friend who actually used to work in that environment, and there was a whole lot of money involved in
There
it.
is.
I know.
There is. I mean, you know, I get emails twice a week for something happening in London.
Yeah.
The conference, that's going to be decided.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a good market. So maybe,
Yeah.
I'm open to that. Definitely.
too.
Yeah. Conference solution. Okay. Well, I'm going to write it down because if we just keep on my.
I mean, the conference solution is something we got started with. Because
we've got to do
what we
it.
have on the current event slide is something that Vincenz built for one of his clients. And that's why it's coming.
Yeah. Let's take a benefit. We can talk through that ourselves.
It's exactly. It needs some
Needs some
attention as
love
well.
and teach about.
Yeah. And,
It's a good start.
Exactly. It's a good start, and we can build up from there.
E-commerce solution? E-commerce?
E-commerce, absolutely.
Personally,
I'm
I
not
don't
so
want to
sure
stay
about
with
it,
it.
because I think e-commerce, there are already a
To-
lot of e-commerce systems available.
Yeah. The thing is, you're competing with
There's an
non-commerce
existing market
systems.
where
Yeah.
product is defining the price, and it's not an area where I would like to invest if I would.
It takes a lot to get into this.
Yeah.
market.
To get this solution.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that e-commerce is not important, but there are so many products around already that you can buy for almost nothing or use for almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's hard to compete with it.
Yeah.
It's not new.
Excellent.
Would it be nice if it will be a function that you could make a distribution out of a current website? Because when you set up a website and you have done the hard work,
Yeah.
make a distribution of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the idea.
Well, yeah, it's but that's like
the
a
way it
meta.
works as we know.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yes. If all your modules are perfectly designed, right, and they all do the iPortable and everything, and the whole system works as designed, that should be already possible.
The template.
There's sometimes some.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the end. I mean, that is what a distribution will do, right? It will create a very specific portal template and remove a bunch of stuff that we don't want to have on the site. There's a large effort happening to break off all the admin modules into their own projects, so they can more easily be ripped out. I'd say that,
It would be an advantage if a number of modules would start using the content principle, content ID, because then you can create something like iPortable quite easily if you use the content principle like doing now. Because now all the modules have their own content mechanism. And I know from my own experience that it's sometimes very hard to create the iUpgradable or the iExportable for a particular module, because your content is structured in a particular order. And if your module would be based on content IDs, like other CMSs do, it's more easy to buy a generic functionality for workflow, or for exporting content, and so forth. That's the reason why I thought when the Professional Edition Enterprise came out with a staging mechanism, I said from day one that will not work because there is no general unique key content principle inside it.
No, exactly. We like
And
that.
it has died over the past 2 or 3 years.
Exactly. We became too complex.
Yeah. So
Indeed.
it will be some kind of templating mechanism that the modules must adhere and follow the structure that they
And iPortable is typically the last thing that developers check on.
Yeah, it's tremendous, very good if it's available.
Yeah.
For events, I have it on the list for 3 years or 4 years already.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to create a good iPortable principle for a content structure that is much more complicated than just one table.
What does it learn in us?
So,
What does it learn us? You share with us, it's on the shelf for 3 years already, but it's not there. Because content structure is difficult.
yeah, for me, DNN is not so much a CMS, it's a module management system. So every module has its own data structure.
Right.
If you want to build in workflow, each module has to build in workflow.
Right.
But if it would be based like, for example, Joomla or Umbraco, it's more based on content items that can be expanded.
Right.
And you define functionality of the content. So if you develop a workflow, it will work for all modules that use this content principle, instead of implementing it for each module as such. And if you look at my experience with events, it's a complex data structure, or what is complex in this case, but there are a number of files and interlinks, and it makes it very hard to do an export of the data and import the system development, also with primary keys and void keys, which makes it hard to program. Yeah. And it shift back in time, because there are items that are just.
Cool. Any other questions? I have to round off. We have to go to the next session. Thank you very much.